but we also have to build up new structures of deterrence in advance of the Chinese threat becoming concrete. Because if we wait too long, it will be too late. That's water over the dam, but it seems to me that dual recognition still makes sense from the U.S. perspective. This would be very displeasing to Beijing. But that, again, is part of the point, because it would show that the relationship between our two countries is fixed and is not going to go away. You know, I would say when it comes to U.S. resolve and dependability, that we are, of course, subject to democratic pressures, no better, no worse than any other country in that regard. But I'd also just leave you with words that Winston Churchill once said. He said, "You can always count on the Americans to do the right thing, usually after they've tried everything else." And there are times where we go through trying everything else, but just stay with us. We'll get to the right point in due course. Now, the U.S. response to help Taiwan against the Chinese threat has to be fully global. And we have not yet reached the point, I think, where we're doing this. But we need to make up for lost time. And again, it's not just on politico-military issues. We have to deal with Chinese economic misbehavior. But we also have to build up new structures of deterrence in advance of the Chinese threat becoming concrete. Because if we wait too long, it will be too late. So for example, economically, as I mentioned before, China's been stealing intellectual property from the United States and others for decades. We've done very little about it. But one thing that would get China's attention is if we said, no goods or services made in whole or in part from stolen intellectual property can be sold in the United States. That would wake them up, because so much of their economy depends on stolen property. We could broaden that. We could have Japan and South Korea, Europe say the same thing. Now, on the politico-military side, I think there's a lot more bilaterally we need to do between the United States and Taiwan. I said in 2000, so 23 years ago, that the United States should extend full diplomatic relations to Taiwan. That's water over the dam, but it seems to me that dual recognition still makes sense from the U.S. perspective. This would be very displeasing to Beijing. But that, again, is part of the point, because it would show that the relationship between our two countries is fixed. But beyond that, we need a much deeper and richer strategic dialogue between officials of Taiwan, not just diplomats, but military officials, intelligence officials, everybody concerned with national security. The whole Taiwanese national security team needs deeper interaction with the U.S. national security team. It's not just a question of supplying this weapon system or that weapon system. We need coordination, as we have with many other allies, contingency planning, thinking through what China might do and how we respond. If you have to think it through once an attack has taken place, it's too late. And it really is something Taiwan should press for. The more of this kind of discussion that we have to consider the complex range of scenarios that we might face, the greater the prospect of successfully defending Taiwan, but even more important, the greater the prospect of deterring the Chinese aggression in the first place. And we have to tell China and Russia what the consequences are if they take action against Taiwan, not just in the immediate response, but over the longer term, to basically excommunicate China from the international economic system if it did take military action against Taiwan or attempt to throw a blockade around it. There's much more that needs to be done, not just in the military space, not just making Taiwan a porcupine, but getting more cooperation from other countries in the region and around the world. Because as I said earlier, the more Taiwan is embedded with other countries in collective security, collective defense efforts, the lower the likelihood that China will take military action.